All right guys, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a very scary situation that just happened with the 4-valve swap Mustang GT. So let's get into today's video. Let's get right into it. No need to prolong anything. I was out the other day in the 4-valve swap, and a big issue I was having is I couldn't find anywhere to practice how to drift, to learn how to slide, that type of stuff. So I found a little area that I could sweep through and then mangy back the next way and then sweep through. And I checked the coolant, checked the oil, made sure everything was topped up properly, everything was full, everything was ready to go. Let the car warm up, took it out, started thrashing on it, coming through the corners, really beating on this thing. And I'm so sorry I didn't record it because I was just really trying to practice and get more familiar with the car, because with the angle kit on it now, it feels like an entirely different vehicle. If you give me any stock Mustang, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to do donuts and come out of the donuts and slide away and all that stuff. But with an angle kit, the geometry is so far off that like you have to be very intentional about which way you want to go, how long you want to stay to one side, and how hard you want to throw it. It's very different from a factory car. So I was just learning it. And I heard a very scary noise, which sounded like a knock. So the minute I heard a little whoop whoop, which is like a knock, I came off the gas and I noticed my oil pressure dropped to 0. And if you guys know, the Ford oil pressure gauge is a dummy gauge. So as long as you have more than 6 psi of oil pressure, it's gonna read that it's good. So that means I had less than 6 psi of oil pressure. So I put it in third, fourth, and I just let the car idle all the way to the shop, which was only like literally 30 to 45 seconds away from where I was. So I wasn't very far from the shop. Brought this thing back. What I did was, all right, so I let the car sit overnight. I got oil and I got an oil filter. And what I did was, I said to make sure that my oil level is reading properly, I took this dipstick out. This is a aftermarket 4.6 liter 4-valve dipstick. That's exactly what I bought it as on Amazon, and it comes with its own tool and everything. So what I did was, I put in the fresh oil, I changed the filter, I put 7 quarts of oil in the motor. They call for 6 or 6.5, but 7 quarts is fine with the empty oil filter. I cranked it up, let it idle for a while, and shut it off. I let it sit for 20 minutes, and when I pulled I put an original dipstick in it, and when I pulled it, the level of where it's supposed to be was so far off from this aftermarket dipstick. It is freaking insane. Now, after all this time of putting this car together and getting it right, an aftermarket dipstick cost me yet another motor. I'm gonna crank this thing up and let you guys hear it for yourselves. Up. I'm sure you guys can hear that. It's not a constant knock, so I'm thinking it's a connecting rod bearing, but either way, the motor's knocking. I'm gonna show you. It actually has oil pressure. If I get it, there you go. It actually has oil pressure. I just don't know how much oil pressure it has. So before I ruin the motor any further, I'm gonna shut it down. What I am gonna show you now is exactly what I was talking about. So I'm gonna put this back on the tripod and then show you the differences in the dipsticks. So I'm gonna pull this one. I'm gonna pull the one that's actually in the car, and I'm gonna wipe it off. I'm not actually going to show the level, but the level is good. I checked it already. So, and this one with 7 quarts in it, let it run, and then shutting it off. Let me see if I can get you guys to see this. The level of full or high would be here. So from here to here would be high. So if that's high, if this is with 7 quarts in the motor, let it run, shut it down, make a mark on a dipstick so you know that you have the right amount of oil in it. Think about that compared to this. So this little thing here was my full mark, when in reality, my full mark was way off, if you guys can see that. So I was thinking all this time that this is my full mark when it should have been up here. So I bought a trash ass dipstick from Amazon. This right here is where my oil level should have been, and I was reading all the way low. So if you go from end to end, on the full mark on the aftermarket one is where it reads low on our dipstick. So all this time I've been thrashing on it and driving it and beating on it, the flicking engine is low. And as you guys can tell from my tone of voice, I am extremely pissed about it because found a good motor, aftermarket dipstick fucked it up. So what can you do? Just gotta live and learn. Now that I know that you gotta be very careful with these dipsticks, I'm probably just always gonna use this method where even if I'm not sure about the pan, I'm gonna use a metal dipstick, pop that thing in there, and make a mark on it myself to where I know exactly where the oil level is. So, and also before I figured out that the dipstick was a problem, I ended up putting a catch can on this thing, thinking that I was losing all of my oil through the PCV valve going into the intake, but that was ruled out and definitely not the case. But it does make the engine bay look pretty cool, even though it should have been red. That's just what I found here on the island, and I used it, but definitely that wasn't the issue. That dipstick completely messed up this motor, and there's really nothing you can do about it now. So we just got to figure out a new game plan and get back at it. I'm sure you guys can see, man, I did so much work. This thing blew up December 31st. I got a new motor in it in 6 days, and I let a dipstick keep me now from being able to drive my car. So this motor has to come back out. I got to figure out a game plan on what I'm gonna do with this thing, because I think I messed up the 4-valve motor in this car 3 times. The first time I think I put too much, I had a aftermarket fuel pressure regulator, had too much pressure at it, and fuel just was bypassing the cylinder and going down an oil pan, and it spun a bearing. Got rid of that system, learned to just let the Mustang do its own fuel pressure regulating, and it did. The second one is the one that you guys saw in the previous video, where I didn't torque down the rod bolt tight enough, and it backed out and snapped, destroyed the second motor. And now the third motor is just because I wanted to be nice and fancy, ordered a 4-valve 4.6 liter dipstick and dipstick tube, and it just was not the right thing. And the thing is, the listing was 4-valve 4.6, so I guess you live and learn, and now we got to do more work on this thing. But I do have a pretty cool plan for this car, so it's not all bad. I wish I could have gotten more time out of that. I think that motor went in there January. It's now March, and it has to come back out. So we never want to show these type of things to the world, but the one thing I always knew that I wanted to do when I started to record videos is never shy away from the fails. I wanted to show people that this does happen more often than not, and it's not a reason to give up. You just maybe put it to the side for a few months or put for a few weeks, and then you go right back at it, guys. There's no reason to give up. These things that happen, they're just purely lessons. So now I've learned so many things after digging into these motors so much that I know them like the back of my hand. And yet again, I've made another mistake by putting the wrong dipstick in it. When I put the right dipstick in it, you guys saw how different the full mark is from the aftermarket one to where I made a mark from just a long regular 4.6 dipstick, and it was drastically different. So all that time I've been thrashing on this thing, it didn't have the right amount of oil in it, and I paid the price for that. But we're gonna get back to this thing at a later date, and I have a lot more interesting content coming up. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Always remember, don't drift without your dreams, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.